Meow 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 meow. LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga is an absolute childhood classic that in many ways still holds up to this day. A little history lesson for you. The original LEGO Star Wars covers episodes 1 through 3, and LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, was 4 through 6. The Complete Saga just marries the two, polishes the games up a bit, and adds a bit of new content as well. All of this to say, the original LEGO Star Wars 1 may be the first game I've ever 100%. I have so many memories from this game, and since my primary focus this year is completing nostalgic games, I can think of no better game to start with. So let's get started, everyone. Wait, you get it? like Star Wars? It's Star Wars. The story is Star Wars. You know, like the movies? Well, kinda. I think TT Games, the developer of the licensed LEGO games, came in under the strong and also reasonable assumption that people playing LEGO Star Wars were also Star Wars fans. To those who hadn't seen a Star Wars movie when first playing this game, like myself, you're out of luck, unfortunately. The story of this game is told through jokey cutscenes with no dialogue. The comedy is top-notch, but I personally found it very hard to parse the plot of these movies from the cutscenes alone. They do give you a Star Wars intro sequence for every level, but as a kid, I'm not reading all that. I'm not reading all of it now, to be honest with you. But seriously, like, without the context of the movie, can you even tell what's going on here? Oh, no, I think I get it. See, the green guy is Yoda, and the handsome long-haired gentleman is offering some sort of favor involving his hand in exchange for the aquatic vehicle there. I see why you guys like these movies now. The other thing of note is that if you've seen episodes 1 through 6, you'll notice there's some pretty major scenes missing from just about all the episodes in this game. Episode 1 is missing the scene with the giant sea monster, and there's no level of the Gungans fighting the droids, just a 2-second clip and a cutscene. Episode 2 doesn't have the big lizard on Geonosis, and I feel like the only part of that scene I remember is the big lizard. Episode 3 is probably the worst offender, with no Mace Windu and Anakin fight, no Yoda Palpatine fight, and no scene where Anakin hangs out with the younglings.
Oh my God!
Episodes 4 through 6 definitely do a better job highlighting the important scenes, and really the only thing I can knock them for is not letting us fight Vader as Obi-Wan in the Death Star in Episode 4. I could go on and on about this, and I will. I'm going to go over all 36 story levels in this game, ranking each on a scale of 1 to 10, though I will be ranking them mostly by gameplay, level design, and how fun the level is, rather than from a story perspective. With that being said, let's get right into Episode 1, Chapter 1, Negotiations. The first level in the entire game. After clearing this one, you can start any other episode from beginning to end, but you have to do this one first. I've always seen this level as a tutorial, and a strong one at that. It teaches you pretty much everything you'll need to know. How to fight, how to use the Force and build, it introduces you to droids, and it shows that you actually can't explore an entire level and find every collectible in the story run of a level. After beating a story level, you unlock the characters you played as in that level to use in free play, which is where you replay the level, but you can use any character you've unlocked. Only certain characters have the ability to enter certain locations, giving each level a bit of replayability. I'm kinda 50-50 on this game design philosophy, but a lot of levels in the game are engaging enough that I don't mind playing them more than once. This level excels as the introductory level to this game. The path to beat the story run is quite simple. I've sketched a map right here, and whether it's due to good level design or the primary recency bias, this is one of the most memorable levels in the game, quite frankly. I'll give it a 9. Star Wars Episode 1 has a scene where Jar Jar Binks jumps extremely high in the air and dives into a body of water and goes Chapter 2 of Episode 1, Invasion of Naboo, loved this scene so much that they designed an entire level around this. You fight a couple of droids in a forest before you find Jar Jar Binks, who can't fight at all but is fortunately blessed with a 5-meter vertical, and pretty much the rest of the level is jumping up on high platforms that only Jar Jar can reach. This game is 2-player and I played it with my brother when I was young, and while modern LEGO games have the option of a split-screen perspective, moving even a little far away from the other player in the Complete Saga will just completely pull someone off a cliff. This is incredibly evident with a character like Jar Jar, who often has to travel to the other side of the screen to reach platforms. The level ends with you ominously walking toward the very shore that I was talking about, and then Yoda shows up. I don't really like this level because it revolves entirely around Jar Jar's ability to jump really high, an ability that's never used again in the rest of the entire game. I'll give this one a 5. Episode 1, Chapter 3, Escape from Naboo, is our introduction to characters with blasters. They can shoot, and they can also grapple up ledges with this little crosshair on the floor. Not a lot to say, this one's good. You start the level as Queen Amidala and Captain Panaka. I always thought Lego Captain Panaka was cute and hoped he'd be more important in the story, but no, he's really only in Episode 1. Partway through the level, you run into Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and the level itself is just very straightforward. 6 out of 10. Episode 1, Chapter 4 is Mos Espa Pod Race, the one and only racing level in the whole game. You play as Anakin, and this level kind of just holds your hand the whole time. It's technically a race, but I think it's scripted in a way where you can't really lose. The pod race was my favorite part of the movie as a kid. I liked when the dinosaur did a big fart, but that doesn't show up in this game. Also, I would have been pissed if I placed a moneyline bet on Sebulba and some random 9-year-old underdog just wins like that. This level's all presentation and barely any gameplay, and you can almost complete this entire level in the story run alone, so I'll give it a 7. Episode 1, Chapter 5, Retake Theed Palace. I've always thought this level was cool in concept. It's got big the battle before the final battle vibes, and that's exactly what it is. Every important character you've played thus far, except for Jar Jar, is present, and we're introduced to a new type of character, short people. Child Anakin cannot attack, but he can crawl in little crawl spaces. Cool beans! There's a lot of obstacles and little puzzles that involve moving stuff around to accommodate every character in this one, and it's a cool level. The last section of this level has you rescuing a bunch of soldiers from droids, and the level itself ends with R2-D2 opening a hangar door for some reason. This is also the last time we ever see Captain Panaka. I won't forget you, buddy. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. Wrap it up, we can go home now, everybody. Episode 1, Chapter 6, Darth Maul is a 10 out of 10. This is a multi-part boss battle, where the whole level is non-stop action. They take the already cool setting that this battle takes place from Episode 1 and expand it out. The level starts with you having to use the Force to repel items at Darth Maul while fighting off droids. It then turns into a chase that eventually leads to an army of droids you have to fight. There's this corridor where you have to simultaneously hit switches to deactivate these walls. Then there's this big fight at the end. The ending cutscene here is iconic and maybe the best adapted scene of the films that this game has. Beating the last chapter of any episode shows your percentage completion of the game thus far, as well as the credits. Hi, Dave Dutzen. And now we're on to Episode 2, Chapter 1, Bounty Hunter Pursuit. Fun fact, this level was not in the original LEGO Star Wars, and was added in the Complete Saga later on, probably so every episode could have 6 chapters. So how is this level? It's bad. Assuming you're playing in order from Episode 1 to 6, this is the first ship level. It does a pretty horrible job of familiarizing players with the controls. The vehicles blend into the map. They pretty much make you do the same section twice where you slowly build up torpedoes to shoot at these antenna thingies, and the boss at the end is really annoying to try to hit. Really the only good part about this level is it looks kinda nice, but nice visuals alone is going to make this level a 2 out of 10 for me. The biggest drawback of LEGO Star Wars, or any LEGO game for that matter, being 2-player, is they have to get creative when adapting movie scenes where it primarily focuses on only one character. Episode 2, Chapter 2, Discovery on Kamino is one of a couple levels where this is evident. Obi-Wan goes to Kamino with his trusty sidekick R4P17. And no, before you say it, it's not R2-D2. Please don't type in the comments that you love red R2-D2 from Episode 2, Chapter 2, Discovery of Kamino. I will ban you if you say that. Now, playing as Obi-Wan for a level is awesome. Being stuck as player 2 and having to play as R4P17 the entire time, the child me was majorly jealous of my older brother for that one. Although coming back to it today, I think they made the best of this situation. R4 proves to be invaluable at multiple parts of the level, and genuinely does feel like a good inclusion here. There's a lot of sections where Obi-Wan kicks ass, while R4 needs to provide support. The level ends with a boss fight against Jango Fett and a young Boba Fett, who's providing supporting fire from a ship. If you're skilled enough, you can solo Jango as Obi-Wan, but the intended solution is to use R4 to deal with Boba's ship during the fight. A droid versus a massive spacecraft is a real David and Goliath situation, and I'm here for it. Or at least that's how I coped with playing as the shitty droid for a whole level. I'll give this one an 8. I don't know, I just like it. Episode 2, Chapter 3, Droid Factory. The scene in Attack of the Clones where Anakin, Padme, R2, and C-3PO go to the droid factory is maybe one of the dumbest scenes in the film. It's an extended sequence where the characters comically try to avoid getting crushed by machinery. Naturally, a premise like this would lend itself to be a great idea for a video game level, but this level's just okay. We start off by fighting a group of Geonosians in a hallway before we get to the factory itself. You traverse down long conveyor belts with crushy thingies, activate machinery to travel to otherwise unreachable areas, all with the purpose of rescuing Obi-Wan. He gets captured in the movie, and this is another scene that's missing from the game, now that I think about it. This level fails to convey the panic of its movie counterpart, and it just ends up being a decent platforming level. There's barely even any droids in the droid factory. 5 out of 10. Episode 2, Chapter 4, Jedi Battle, sets a similar stage to Discovery on Kamino. Player 1 controls Mace Windu, a Jedi, cool as fuck. Player 2, R2-D2, god damn it. Except this time you fight in an arena, battling waves of droids to rescue Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan one by one. The camera is stationed right at the center of the map, which practically speaking makes the stage more of a donut shape than a perfect circle. The reason this shape is such a problem is it makes it difficult to not only hit enemies that you're looking for, but also difficult to see them if they're off screen. This all makes it a chore to find and destroy the droids you need to progress the level. Just like Discovery on Kamino, the stage ends with a boss fight against Jango Fett, but instead of putting up a fight, you just lop his head off immediately. Good stuff, 7 out of 10. Episode 2, Chapter 5, Gunship Cavalry is the worst level in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. You ride in these gunships on Geonosis, and you have to use a cable to drag bombs over to these antenna thingies to deactivate this wall of electricity. The bomb is a bit hard to control when it's tethered to you, and can get caught on small enemies or fall off the side of the map. Not to mention that there's these lasers that you're at the mercy of, and if you're not the most patient person in the world, you'll surely die to them. Playing this one 2-player is an absolute nightmare as well. I'm giving this level a 1 and moving on. The prequel films in particular have quite a few short levels, but Episode 2, Chapter 6, Count Dooku may be the shortest in the entire game. It starts with what I can only describe as unmitigated psychopathy from Anakin. So Obi-Wan and Anakin get dropped off to Dooku's hideout by this gunship, before the pilot and anyone else on the ship are immediately killed. But look, Obi-Wan did this embarrassing fall, and he's a freaking dummy. If I didn't know any better, I'd think this Anakin guy might not be all good. You head inside the hideout, do this simple puzzle where players go back and forth standing on buttons to extend platforms, then you work together to open the gate below. This is when the boss fight against Count Dooku starts, and it's cool but not difficult. Halfway through, Karma strikes and Anakin loses his hand, and Yoda hops into the fight. Fun fact, this battle in the movie is where the Lego Yoda death sound comes from. The boss itself consists of reflecting objects back with the Force, and having one player attack Count Dooku while the other is incapacitated. These levels that are primarily just a boss fight are some of my favorites, so I'll give this one an 8, finishing out Episode 2. Yo, is that Dave Dudeson? Now we're on to my personal favorite Star Wars movie from childhood, Revenge of the Sith. And I couldn't think of a better scene for them to adapt than Episode 3, Chapter 1, Battle over Coruscant. This game has a pretty messy run with ship levels and will continue to throughout the course of the game, but this one is great because it's not like any other ship level. It's just a brief autoscroller where you shoot everything on the screen. Very arcadey, very fun. You can also get every collectible in this one, and it tickles my completion brain just right. It's a 9 out of 10. In a rare twist, one chapter ending leads directly to the beginning of the next, and Episode 3, Chapter 2, Chancellor in Peril, continues the banger streak as well. This level has everything: a boss battle, engaging combat sections, this scary sequence where a wall chases you, you play as Obi-Wan and Anakin, and have R2-D2 and eventually Chancellor Palpatine to swap to. Palpatine is our introduction to characters that can do absolutely nothing. It's one of the most jarring design choices in this whole game, but there are a handful of characters that can't use the Force, can't shoot, can't attack in any way. All Palpatine can do is jump. He's basically only good for role-playing purposes. As I mentioned, there's a few levels where it's basically just an extended boss fight with a couple puzzles thrown in here and there, and while Episode 3, Chapter 3, General Grievous is good, it's probably the weakest of the bunch. You play as Obi-Wan and Commander Cody, and the main issue here is the moment you do 2 damage to Grievous, he jumps further and further away. You can get him to return to the battlefield by incrementally solving a super easy puzzle, but every time he jumps back up and you have to climb up the same cliffside you just climbed up like 4 times. The way the game adapts the scene from the movie here leaves much to be desired as well. There's no stealth introduction where Obi-Wan goes, "Hello there." No lizard and no weird vehicle chase. And this is just a personal gripe, but LEGO General Grievous just looks kinda silly. Definitely not menacing like in the movie. I'll give this one a 7. One thing that you'll notice in this game is that characters don't move very quickly. This isn't much of a problem in levels where you're exploring a spaceship or are indoors most of the time, but it's extremely noticeable in Episode 3, Chapter 4, Defense of Kashyyyk, at least in my eyes. You play as Yoda and Chewbacca in this one, and Yoda can either move slow or really slow. The original LEGO Star Wars gave Yoda this weird quirk where he moves by jumping and spinning in the air like a figure skater, and I guess they thought that was too overpowered, so they gave him back problems and now he's the slowest character in the entire game. Funnily enough, jumping around is still the fastest way for him to move. The level itself consists of Yoda landing on Kashyyyk, the clones are given the order to fuck shit up, you rescue some Wookiees, take a long walk on the beach, then Yoda flies away. It's a bit jarring to me why they would include this level over one about Mace Windu versus Anakin or Yoda versus Palpatine, but I got through this level eventually.
Basically did that, I did.
On principle, a level where you play as 2 Jedi and no one else is always pretty fun to me. As a kid and even now, I've always thought Jedi are just generally cooler than any other types of characters in Star Wars. Episode 3 Chapter 5 Ruin of the Jedi does everything a 2 Jedi level should do, a lot of Force related puzzles, a good amount of action, but I feel like it falls short in the moments in between. At its core, this level is just walking in a straight line, fighting a wave of enemies, and using the Force. You do that like 4 times in a row, with the only deviation from it being this okay platforming section where you pull these ledges out with the Force to push buttons, and then the level's over. The level also abruptly ends. There's this final room where you need to power on a projector, and once you use the Force for a few seconds on it, there's this eerie delay before the level actually ends. It kinda just makes you think like, wait, is the level over? 5 out of 10. Episode 3 Chapter 6 Darth Vader. This level is perfect. The level starts. Anakin is yelling at his pregnant wife. Obi-Wan comes in. Really, bro? A fight breaks out. But they're on the volcanic planet of Mustafar and therefore need to spend more time not falling into lava than actually fighting. I've often said that having an emotional connection to a piece of media can strongly impact how you feel about it, so let me set the scene for you. The year is 2005. I am a child. My brother and I receive a copy of the original LEGO Star Wars for the PlayStation 2. Life is good. We make it through the entire game in a single day. Well, almost. We make it to this level, Episode 3, Chapter 6. It starts with a section where you platform through bits of ground and terrain. It's difficult and it takes a few tries, but we get through it. We get to the next section. There's fallen support beams and 30 seconds before the whole place caves in. We move the support beams out of the way to escape and just narrowly make it out. We make it to the third major section of the level. This part is all teamwork related puzzles. You stand on 2 buttons together, you have to hold this crank in place on one end so the other player can grab it from the other side and let you through. I'm 7 and don't really understand this concept. As a result, we fail this section more times than I can even remember. In reality, it was probably less than 10, but it feels like hundreds of failed attempts in my head. A fight breaks out IRL. Just as Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting, so too are the Hub brothers. Mom enters the battle. We are forbidden from playing LEGO Star Wars for about a week because we fought. I don't think my brother and I have fought about anything seriously since. We use this idle time to theory craft, strategize, become the best LEGO Star Wars players there ever was. And 1 week later, our resolve was stronger than ever. Our teamwork was immaculate. The brotherly bond is as strong as it can be. We knock it out of the damn park the moment we come back, but we're not done yet. We enter the penultimate section of the level, perhaps the hardest platforming section in this game. There's terrain from buildings floating in a sea of lava, sinking behind us as we narrowly make jumps. If even one of us messes up, we have to start all over. We board a plunging tower to make it onto an island of rocks. The final section. We take out our lightsabers. Whereas a week prior we would have beaten the absolute stuffing out of each other in real life as well as in the game, we have a gentleman's duel. Perhaps if Obi-Wan and Anakin had a motherly figure to give them a week to think on it, things may have been different. I believe my brother won the duel, but does it even matter? The truth is, we both emerged victorious that day. The fact that I still remember something that happened 20 years ago so clearly is a testament to a memorable ass level. The cutscenes of Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting are a great way to transition to the next sections, and it would be impossible to remove the strong emotional connection I already have to this level. For those reasons, I don't know what else I can give this besides a perfect 10. If I had to choose my favorite level in the whole game, it would be this one. Hello Dave Duteson, on to the next episode. Could any level in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga possibly surpass Chapter 6 of Episode 3? No, but Episode 4, Chapter 1, Secret Plans is pretty good. As I mentioned earlier, The Complete Saga is a marrying of LEGO Star Wars 1 and 2, so this level is actually the first one in LEGO Star Wars 2. As such, it has a lot of tutorial elements for mechanics that were new at the time and more prominent in the original trilogy levels. Unlike the prequels, there actually aren't that many Jedi characters in the original trilogy, so Secret Plans teaches you how to use blaster characters, and also is the introduction to building with Lego pieces versus using the Force to put stuff together. The Complete Saga posthumously added a couple of building things and original trilogy mechanics to prequel levels, but they originated here. We're also introduced to pulling levers, pushing blocks, and using vehicles and machinery within levels. It's a really good starting level, just like the one in Episode 1, but it's not really as iconic, unfortunately. It still gets an 8 from me. And now, get ready for a trek through the Junlin Wastelands. Enjoy scenic views of sand, a whole lot of sand. Climb up the monumental thingy and go inside of it. Take a detour through the breathtaking droid imprisonment facility. And just when you thought walking through hella sand was over, well, here's some more sand. This is a pretty forgettable level. It really only serves the purpose of conveying important plot details in A New Hope through cutscenes, and the level itself is kinda just filler. There's this part where Luke slices C-3PO's head off with a lightsaber, and that is funny. I'll give this one a 5. Okay, maybe I'm just biased against desert levels, but just like the one before, I'm not really a ride or die for Episode 4, Chapter 3, Mos Eisley Spaceport. It covers some important and memorable scenes from A New Hope, like these aren't the droids you're looking for, and the cantina scene, except after using the Force to confuse a stormtrooper, you immediately get attacked by a bunch of them as soon as the level starts. You take a painful journey over to the cantina. It's painful because they place barriers in your way that can only be destroyed in the story by building an ATST from scraps found on the map, and then the game kicks you out of that ATST to fight a wave of stormtroopers. This is a common theme in the original trilogy levels in my opinion. The scenes from episodes 4 through 6 are a lot less dynamic and action-oriented than the prequels, so when adapting them into levels, it seems like a lot of heavy lifting was required to gamify something like walking to the cantina, which is an event that happens mostly off-screen in the movie. Compare this to say like episode 2 for example. That movie has a space car chase, a Looney Tunes asteroid factory, a fight in a giant stadium, a cool fight against Count Dooku. The list goes on. I'm not saying the prequels are better, I personally feel the opposite is true. I just feel like the prequels are easier to adapt into gameplay is all. This whole thing is by no means the fault of the developers of the game by the way, but it definitely makes a lot of the original trilogy levels feel fillery for lack of a better term. Anyway, you go to the cantina and the game does an admittedly interesting thing that it never does again. You start the level as Obi-Wan, Luke, R2, and C-3PO, and then after the cantina you swap to Han Solo and Chewbacca before meeting up with the other 4 at the end. Other games may take an opportunity like this to maybe give a tutorial specific to those characters, but there's nothing Han and Chewie can do that any other character with a gun can't also do. I just thought that was kinda interesting, I don't know. The level ends with a few waves of stormtroopers followed by a mini-boss fight, and then you board the Millennium Falcon. I'm grasping at straws to think of anything else remotely interesting about this one, so I'll give it a 6 and move on. Episode 4, Chapter 4 is Rescue the Princess, a simple and straightforward name, and you do exactly that. This level introduces a mechanic where you can put on a Stormtrooper helmet to access Stormtrooper-only doors, and even blend in with the enemies. It's a great gameplay adaptation for what is actually going on in the movie, which is Luke and Han disguising themselves as Stormtroopers. It's a nice touch. For a lot of the level, you can see Obi-Wan on his own mission, and he lends a hand here and there. He'll like build a bridge for you sometimes, I don't know. It ends with Luke and Han finding Leia and jumping into a compartment leading to the trash compactor. Everything hits just right in this level for me. Call me crazy, I think this one gets a 9. Episode 4, Chapter 5, Death Star Escape is filled with missed opportunity after missed opportunity. The level opens on the iconic scene where the trash compactor is slowly closing on our heroes, and it's one of the most tense scenes in the movie. Well, what better way to honor this scene than to give us the players an unforgettable segment where you have to do everything you can under pressure to delay the trash compactor, and ultimately barely make it out. I'm just kidding, this part is a cutscene at the beginning of the level. We actually start by standing in the powered off trash compactor and walking out 2 seconds later. But what about the iconic scene where Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight? I mean, surely the boss battle segment rivals some of the other boss fights in the game. Nope, that's just the cutscene at the end of the level. We do get to see them duke it out in a sealed room in the background though, if that makes it any better. I kinda think that makes it worse, but that's just me. What we're left with after all of that is a 15-minute long trek through the Death Star with worse sections than the level before it. You have this one where you have to pull a lever to change the location of where a grappling hook goes and then press some buttons. There's some long hallways and this super annoying section where you have to build the longest to build structure ever. All the while, stormtroopers keep spawning and you can only temporarily make them go away by doing a synchronized lever press with your partner. I suppose the final section of the level where you have to prep the Millennium Falcon for liftoff is the best part, but that's not really saying much. I find this to be a badly executed and fairly boring level. I'm feeling a light 3 on this one. Episode 4, Chapter 6, Rebel Attack. What are they attacking? The Death Star. I hope we aren't going to need spaceships for this. I haven't been too nice to those levels. Ah shit, we do, don't we? Okay, this one actually isn't too bad. Fun fact, the vehicle levels in the prequel games were either different or non-existent in the original LEGO Star Wars game, so this is actually the first vehicle level like this, and they did a pretty good job. It's basically a straightforward tutorial on ship controls. There's a lot of stationary targets to get used to blasting things, you learn how to use torpedoes, and the targets are laid out very obviously. This level is basically a straight line from beginning to end, which makes a lot of sense because it's technically the first ship level they designed. But because I'd wager most people are playing episodes 1 through 6 in that order, Rebel Attack showing up as the 24th level and it's basically a tutorial level feels a bit strange. The level ends, of course, with getting chased down a narrow corridor of the Death Star before shooting a torpedo into its weak spot. It feels like the torpedo mechanic in this game was made for this exact moment, and I find it cool when stuff like this happens. All in all, I think a 7 is fair, right? Shout out Dave Dutzen, by the way. One of the nicest things I can say about Episode 5, Chapter 1, Hoth Battle, is it's a way better version of Gunship Cavalry from Episode 2. Now don't get it twisted, that does not make this a good level, but it's okay. The level has multiple sections where you tow bombs over to destructible barricades and piles of snow, before eventually getting to the good part, which is using the tow cable to knock over the AT-ATs. This is an iconic part of the movie, and it's a prime mechanic to adapt to a video game. In fact, they've probably included the tow cable to knock over AT-ATs in every Star Wars game that includes Hoth. Progression-wise, you have to do a few segments where you have to tow bombs, then you have to knock over AT-ATs and tow bombs to destroy them, then it's multiple ways against these droid things, AT-STs, and AT-ATs. There's nothing really that egregious about this level, I just don't find it to be super fun. Episode 5, Chapter 2, Escape from Echo Base, is yet another aptly named level. The base is falling apart, and Han, Leia, Chewie, and C-3PO must escape. A huge standout moment from this level is the part where there's a small incline on the floor no higher than a curb that's specifically meant to keep C-3PO from getting up there and opening a door. You then proceed to build a strange vehicle that only shows up once in the entire game that's meant to catapult C-3PO up there. I think Han, Chewie, and Leia could have easily just lifted him up themselves, but I like how extra they have to be to get him up this 1-foot tall ledge. This level sticks the landing in terms of recreating the base on Hoth, especially this hangar area that the Falcon is stored in, as well as recreating the shot of Luke seeing the Falcon take off. I even like the detail of how you have to go over to different areas of the Falcon to rebuild it, which mirrors how Han has to mess around with different parts of the ship in just the right way to get it to work in the film. However, it doesn't really convey the level of tension that the scene in the movie has. The movie has debris falling everywhere, and multiple times our heroes have to turn around and find alternate routes to escape. They're constantly facing the threat of being crushed or worse, captured by Darth Vader and crew. But in this level, anytime you get met with a roadblock, you just press a button on the ground to get through, and also the Empire's presence can barely be felt whatsoever. If anything, this is like a cozy snow level with the occasional enemy encounter. 5 out of 10. Now, one of the nicest things I can say about Episode 5, Chapter 3, Falcon Flight, is nothing. Nothing at all. They've taken the scene from The Empire Strikes Back with the asteroid field and made the asteroids extremely easy to avoid. I feel like the whole point of the scene from the movie is that they posed a threat, but I guess not here. Instead, you'll be destroying stationary space rocks to farm torpedoes in order to shoot the weak points of larger rotating rocks. Maybe it's just a skill issue, but my shots never seem to land unless I get lucky, and backtracking to farm more torpedoes is a chore. Pretty much every spaceship level in the game throws the same challenge at you 3 or so times, without ramping up the difficulty in any meaningful way. And despite the fact that there's only 8 levels where you control a vehicle of some sort, the design of these levels is a bit tiresome. Sorry if that's mean, obviously you can't have a Star Wars game without spaceships and shit. I just don't understand why they opted for the weird camera and controls that these levels ended up with. The only thing I like about this level is that you go inside a hole in the ground to gather torpedoes, but it's really the inside of the Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob. I thought that was cool. 2 out of 10. In video games, there are some universal rules. Everybody seems to hate water, desert, or swamp levels, but I'm here to say that Episode 5, Chapter 4, Dagobah is a pretty good swamp level. It starts off with Luke and R2, and R2-D2 has the new, this level exclusive ability to swim. You can use this multiple times to get Luke across bodies of water, because obviously LEGO Luke Skywalker can't swim. You eventually make it to Yoda's residence, where he offers to train Luke, and you get another level exclusive ability where Yoda can ride on Luke's back in order to give him Force abilities. You solve a couple puzzles, all the while R2-D2 stays useful and relevant to completing the level, which is a plus for me. Eventually you run into the visage of Darth Vader, and it's a pretty standard fare mini-boss fight. The level ends with you using the Force to raise the X-Wing out of the water, just like in the movie. It's just a pretty solid level. It captures the ambiance and vibe of Dagobah really well, and it's a little spooky scary, honestly. I'll give it a strong 8. Episode 5, Chapter 5, Cloud City Trap, is yet another boss-centric level where the ultimate goal is to fight Darth Vader as Luke Skywalker. And this level delivers. Player 1 is Luke, and Player 2 is R2-D2, and I don't believe Player 2 has very much fun. It feels like R2 doesn't actually contribute much to the fight, but rather the fight gets delayed at certain points, and R2 is the only one that can get it to continue. You do things like turn on event, and then you turn on event, and then you turn on event. For Luke, though, it's a very fun level. Since he's learned the Force in the last level, you get this feeling that you couldn't do this fight without the training you underwent. Just like in the movies. There's this old early 2000s Flash animation called Star Wars Gangsta Rap, and it's got this one part where Luke and Vader are rapping against each other, and Luke goes, "Oh, why'd you slice off my hand?" I always thought this was silly, and I think about it anytime someone talks about Star Wars. Something something, strong emotional connection, this level's a 9. To round out Empire Strikes Back is Episode 5, Chapter 6, Betrayal over Bespin. This level has a lot to wrap up, and does a pretty serviceable job at doing so. We're introduced to Lando in Cloud City, Boba Fett, there's that scene where they shoot a laser and Darth Vader catches it in his hand and it vanishes. I've always been curious about that scene, but maybe a Star Wars head can explain that to me, how he did that. And then Han gets turned to carbonite. The level starts with a chase, you fight Boba Fett briefly, then he flees to his ship. You catch up with R2 and C-3PO, and eventually escape yourselves in the Millennium Falcon. This level ultimately feels obligatory because it is how the movie ends. It doesn't do anything particularly groundbreaking from a design standpoint, and I don't really have a ton to say about this one. There's a segment where gas fills up a room and blocks your path, and only R2 can get through to deactivate it, which is something that was established in an Episode 3 level. That's not really anything that'll impact the score I'll give this level, more so just a random fact to come away from this level with. It's a 6 for me. Oh, hey Dave Dudeson. Episode 6, Chapter 1, Jabba's Palace. The level starts with Leia and Chewie outside of Jabba's palace. You shoot down these eyeball sensor turrets and the door to the palace opens. You're met with these powerful guards that take a few hits to beat and a lever to stop them from spawning. You have the option to run past them and try to finish parts of the level quickly, or fight it out. The choice is yours. And just when you thought the game was out of tricks, they introduce another mechanic, bounty hunters. There's a lever that gives you a bounty hunter hat, and bounty hunters can open specific doors as well as gain access to grenades. The rest of the level you'll slowly meet up with everyone, Luke, R2, C-3PO, and eventually rescue Han Solo. The gang's all here. Before long though, you get dropped into a pit with the Rancor. Unlike any other boss fight, you have to use the environment to damage the Rancor and ultimately drop a giant door on it. Just like the movies. This is a very good level. It's got a cool design, big roster to choose from, a satisfying boss fight at the end, and an overall good adaptation of the source material. 9 out of 10. It's been a couple of years since I've watched Return of the Jedi, but Episode 6 Chapter 2 is titled and takes place in the Great Pit of Carkoon. There's also an entity of some sort called the Sarlacc Pit in this level. Is the Sarlacc's name Carkoon or something? I don't know. Anyway, this level is spent traveling from airship to airship and slowly taking down Jabba's regime. I wish this one was a bit more action-oriented because most of it is doing puzzles to pad out the length of the level. Find the 3 hidden buttons, match the colors to open the door, reroute the power on a moving platform with C-3PO's face on it for some reason. Have a dance party. I get that maybe they couldn't turn Leia choking the life out of Jabba the Hutt into a fun gameplay moment for kids, but this level does have that cool scene where R2 shoots the lightsaber over to Luke, but then when you're actually in the level, there's like 10 enemies. The level ends by powering on a giant turret and using it to disable the airship that you're on. This one is fine, it gets a 6. The speeder bike chase from Return of the Jedi is one of my favorite sequences in the film, and maybe Star Wars as a whole. I love the high speed, high intensity moments within the sequence, and I love the moments where Leia gets to do cool shit. I also like the part where the speeder chase happens, and then the exact same chase with minimal changes happens 3 more times after that. Oh, that's not Return of the Jedi, it's actually LEGO Star Wars Episode 6 Chapter 3 Speeder Showdown that does that? I wouldn't have guessed. You board speeder bikes, shoot down stormtroopers on a very brief course that you will be taking multiple laps around, and after every wave you have to steal or build an ATST to shoot down a shield tower to make it to the next section. Why this couldn't be one multi-wave speeder section and is instead 4 chases with 5-minute intermissions each time is beyond me. Also, maybe a skill issue, but the stormtroopers do this annoying thing where they do a flip on their speeder, and then you zoom past them, making it so you have to turn around and then turn again, and you lose a ton of distance on them. The only saving grace of this level is the ending where you hijack an AT-AT and shoot down these towers. That alone does not bring this level above a 3 for me, however. Episode 6, Chapter 4, The Battle of Endor is so long, dude. I don't know if it's the longest level in the game, but it sure feels like it. So like these Ewoks are like totally glazing the fuck out of C-3PO. Huh, I like to call him Threeps, by the way. And they think he's like a god or something. But none of that shit matters because we have to like blow up a bunker and shit. You make a slow voyage through the forest, do teamwork puzzles because you have like 6 party members on this one, steal an ATST or 2, and make it to the bunker. This level is a farewell to your typical ground levels, and it pulls out every possible stop. Buttons that your team has to step on. Check. Little crawl spaces that only a child or an Ewok could fit through. Yep, got those. The presence of blaster characters. They're gone after this, bro. Savor your time with Han Solo while you can. Now that we're in the bunker, you have to complete another puzzle to actually gain entrance to an inner area to set charges. I'm 26 years old at the time of recording this, and I actually struggled to complete parts of this level for some reason. I'm a big boy though, I got through it. I was going to give this one a 6, but the game crashed on me when I was at the very end, so it's getting a 5. Just because we're at the second to last level of the game doesn't mean they can't slip in a quick banger before the end. Episode 6, Chapter 5, Jedi Destiny is the final boss fight focused level, and it's a goodie. A greatie even. You play as Luke and Darth Vader, and fight against the Emperor. There's multiple segments to this boss fight, and he has more HP than any other boss in the game. This is also the only story level where you can control a Sith character, and Sith characters have the ability to use the Force on objects with these little red sparklies on them. Jedi Destiny exemplifies what it means to gamify the source material. In Return of the Jedi, this scene is not a long battle, but rather Luke getting shocked for like a minute straight and then Vader throwing Sidious off a cliff. Funnily enough, speedrunners did find that with enough finesse, you can actually push the Emperor off a cliff and instantly beat this level. But by making this a long battle, it adds to the scene in a way that only a video game could. This probably won't come as a surprise, but this is another 10 for me. The one drawback to this game adapting a pre-existing story is that it can't end on a banger boss fight, but instead has to end on Episode 6, Chapter 6, Into the Death Star. Dude, a space level as the final one? Seriously, bro? Well, actually, hold on. This one's alright. You farm torpedoes from TIE fighters to shoot down these huge ships. For some reason, it takes forever to find torpedoes. That part's not too fun, but once you're in the second Death Star, this level starts to cook. You fight off the enemy while avoiding terrain that'll quickly drop your hearts to 0. You have to use torpedoes to drop these barriers, and of course, since this is a spaceship level, you have to do this 2 to 3 times. Before long, you'll get to the innermost section, where you have to destroy a bunch of turrets to drop the shields on the core, and then blast a torpedo into there. This causes a chain explosion, and our final moments are spent running away. This is the tension I look for, and I think running away from an explosion is some Star Wars-y shit. Even though it's the last scene of the movie and the last chapter of the game, it almost feels like an epilogue or unfinished business of some sort. Either way, it's an 8 for me, and that's every story level in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga ranked. Say one last hello to Dave Dutzen, everyone! Remember how this is a video about 100%ing the game and not just a ranking of the levels? I just remembered that. Unfortunately, talking about the levels we just discussed in detail is not over yet. In fact, you have to beat every level no less than 4 times each to 100% this game. From just beating the story and doing a couple of side objectives that can be completed during the story, we're at a whopping 34.8% completion. We're also at 40 gold bricks, which is this game's equivalent to stars or emblems or V-Bucks. They're the most valuable thing. The largest contributor to game percentage, as well as the hardest and longest part of the game, is in free play. This is where you can replay any level with any characters you have unlocked so far to collect the majority of the gold bricks found in the Complete Saga. There are 3 side goals that can often only be completed in free play. The easiest is filling up the True Jedi meter. There are studs all over the map. Holy shit, I'm 40 minutes into this video and I haven't talked about studs yet. Studs are money that could be used in the shop, in the cantina, the game's hub world. Studs are found just about anywhere. On the ground, they show up when you interact with things or when you destroy parts of the environment. Collect enough studs in a single level and you'll fill the True Jedi meter for that level, earning another gold brick. The next objective is collecting 10 mini-kits in every stage. These are your red coins from Mario, those little fuckers from Banjo-Kazooie. They're like finding a legendary scar in Fortnite. The Fortnite comparisons are not really working here, guys. Anyway, each stage has 10 mini-kits hidden throughout. I don't actually know what a mini-kit is or what it's based on. They've always looked like a traffic light to me. The final collectible that can be found is the Power Brick, of which there is one in each level. Power Bricks give you the ability to unlock cheats in the shop, but I like to think of them more like upgrades. A lot of them do things like double the damage of lightsabers, blasters, give properties to moves that make them more useful, but there's a ton of joke or purely cosmetic ones as well. To my knowledge, there's only a level or two where you can collect all 10 mini-kits and the Power Brick in the story, making it essentially a free-play exclusive task. All 36 levels that we just beat are actually double the size of what they seem, because there's a ton of side areas only accessible with certain characters. I've talked about characters that have exclusive abilities. R2-D2 and similar droids can open R2-D2 doors, Jedi can use the Force, Blaster characters can grapple these little bullseye things, the list goes on. Regardless of who you choose to play as in free play, the game will give you a roster of at least one of every character type required to find all the collectibles in a level. Granted, you have at least one of that character type. If you beat the entire story, the only character type you'll need to go out of your way to get is a bounty hunter. So am I going to talk about every mini-kit and power brick in the game in exhaustive detail, and give a rating to every level through the lens of how the level is designed in free play? No, I think everyone's going to get home to their kids at some point, so I'm just going to talk about 5 moments where there was a hard-to-find collectible, where the solution was inconsistent from other collectibles, or largely unclear for a grown man like me how to solve. In Episode 3, Chapter 5, there is this claw that needs to move upwards so that you can get this red brick. You have to do like 12 steps to get the claw to move, and you have to go behind all these barriers and deactivate them. It's kind of stupid. In Episode 4, Chapter 1, there's a bugged arrow if you use the mini-kit tracker like I did, so you're just going to be like, where the hell is it? I forget how you get this one. In Episode 4, Chapter 6, there's this one mini-kit on the right side in this area, and I was like racking my brain trying to figure out how to get this one. I forget how to get it. I'll put it on the screen right now, how you get it. Here you go. In Episode 5, Chapter 1, you have to tow the legs of the ATSTs in 2 different sections, 10 times each. There's only like 3 of them on the map, so you have to like go out of your way to get them to respawn. They don't wire up the ATSTs in the movie, so this is kind of confusing. I didn't even know you could do this. There's also a part where you have to tow a bomb through like 3 sections, and then once you're at the start of the 3rd section, there's an AT-AT just waiting there to blast the bomb out of your tow cable, and it's really fucked up. In Episode 5, Chapter 5, this might be a skill issue, but there's a part where you have to drop a stormtrooper into the carbonite chamber. I was looking at the arrow and maybe like tunnel visioning on it, so I kept trying to like grab a thingy from outside of the chamber. I was jumping in there myself. I was pushing R2-D2 in there. Turns out you just gotta have a stormtrooper fall into it. They keep respawning, so it's like it's a skill issue. It's a skill issue. Those were truly the only outliers in a children's game where the collectibles are largely easy to collect. Tack on the mini kit and power brick locators and it makes it even easier. At this point, I was at over 100 gold bricks collected, but what trials will await me on the rest of my completion journey? Along with free play, beating the story gives you access to the challenge run for each level. These are blue mini kit challenges. Essentially, they're like the green stars from Mario Galaxy, if that reference makes sense to you. The level becomes devoid of other collectibles in favor of putting 10 blue mini kits in admittedly arbitrary spots. The good news is they're a lot easier to find than regular mini kits, and they sit stationary in locations versus having to be spawned by like interacting with things. I don't have too much to say about this one. Sometimes the time limit can be a little tight, but the only hard blue mini kit challenge I can think of is at the last chapter of Episode 6, because you have to pick them up while these explosions are happening in the background, making the mini kits hard to see. You can actually just turn around and hang out in the explosions themselves, but you can't see shit in there. Another unlockable from beating an episode are character and mini kit bonuses. Character bonuses put you in a plain level themed after some location from the episode. You have to destroy objects and defeat enemies to pick up studs until you reach the goal. These are really easy and not really worth talking about. The mini kit bonuses are pretty much the same. The mini kits you collect in the game actually come together to build a spaceship or vehicle of some sort. This mode lets you play as those vehicles, and it's the ship level equivalent of those character challenges. You collect a bunch of studs, and it's even easier than the character bonuses. The final unlockable from beating an episode is Super Story. This is a mode where you play through the entire episode's story you just played all the way through, and the game provides a stopwatch to track time, as well as a stud counter. Sorry to tell this to all you speedrunners out here, but all of your runs are unfortunately invalid now because this is the developer intended way to speedrun the game. Sorry everyone, I win, I'm the #1 speedrunner. Just like the other modes, not a ton to say about Superstory. It's the same game that you just played again, but each episode must be played all the way through in one sitting. The only interesting thing is that the time and high score trackers are deceptive because they default to an hour and 100,000 studs respectively, but you actually don't need to beat those high scores to complete the Superstory. You could take 134 hours and collect 1 stud and still get the completion for this one. Superstory wins the award for the most game time padding activity in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. Oh, also the game crashed when I was on Chapter 5 of Episode 6, and I wanted to throw my controller in a fit of gamer rage when that happened. Also, I'm not sure why, but the PC port of Complete Saga did not play well with me. There were a lot of FPS drops and the occasional crash. I guess my hardware is just not strong enough to play this behemoth of a game. I actually did all the modes I just listed before free play, just to get them out of the way, and it ended up being a great choice. Surprisingly, the order in which you complete the game is a bit important to how fast you can get the 100%. Good evening, class. This is Professor Hub, here to give you your Finance 201 lecture today. Today's lesson plan will include stud economics, investing in an RBF, yes, that's a red brick fund for those wondering, and blue mini kit futures. Yes, this will be on the exam. Yes, it is worth 60% of your grade, with no curve. Fuck you. Did you know that everything in the Cantina shop in the Complete Saga costs 47,683,300 studs? Did you also know that after beating the entire story mode, I had 379,000 studs? So like, how the hell, right? I'll tell you how the hell. Blue mini kit futures for our red brick fund. The professor just told us about it, man. Now I have no idea why, but these blue mini kit challenges give hundreds of thousands of studs per time you beat them. By the time I was done with all of them, I had over 10 million studs. And this was before I did anything in free play or any other modes, just the story and blue mini kits. This is where the red bricks come in now. I needed to find the most pertinent red bricks to my goals. I started by finding the bricks that unlock the power brick and mini kit detectors, and then I found the real important ones. There are red bricks for multiplying the studs you collect by ×2, ×4, ×6, ×8, and ×10. And hearing that, you're probably like, okay, 10 times the amount of studs, we'll make it to 47 mil in no time. Well, whether it's a developer oversight or they just wanted to do something really cool, the multipliers actually multiply with each other, so you can actually get 3,840 times as many studs. This is enough to immediately reach the True Jedi completion requirement on any level by picking up one of any denomination of stud, and makes needing studs a thing of the past. With the entirety of the shop bought out, I moved on to the last 2 things I needed to do to complete the game. Buying every bounty hunter as a playable character in the shop gives you access to an area outside of the cantina. If you go through this door, you can receive bounty hunter missions from Jabba the Hutt. Here, you play as a party of every bounty hunter and play hide and seek, looking for targets in a short amount of time. The only tool you get to make this easier is this indicator that tells you when you're getting close to finding your target. I'd highly recommend playing as one of the 2 droid bounty hunters the entire time, since they can open bounty hunter, R2-D2, and C-3PO doors, of which there's a lot in this mode. There's 20 of these missions, each giving you a gold brick for completing them, and I don't know, this mode is kind of weird, I don't know how else to explain it. The targets that you're looking for are always just standing around minding their own business, not even really trying to hide, and when you finally find them, they don't react, and the game is like silent, dead silent, minus this weird sound effect that it plays. It's just got an ominous energy about it. It feels like there should be like a creepypasta written about this. And if you hear this and write one about it like right now, I'll link it. I'll link it in the comments. Please do that, somebody. Either way, there isn't much to say about this one. I did that. The very last thing standing between me and 100% in the Complete Saga is the bonus room. By collecting enough gold bricks, you can build doorways to bonus levels. I love the concept, but the bonus levels themselves? Yeesh. Sorry to those who thought we were done ranking levels, we've got 6 more to go. Bonus level 1, Pod Race Original. Spoiler alert, half of these levels are from the original LEGO Star Wars 1. I don't really mind that they're here. It highlights that they did indeed fix a lot of problems that the original games had, and the Complete Saga isn't just a copy-paste of the 2 games. but I'm gonna say this level is not very good. The original version of the pod race level from episode 1 is a lot more difficult than I remember. You have a very tight time limit to make it from section to section. It's not really even a race, you just have a time limit for each section. Running out of time or losing all your hearts brings you back to the beginning of a section to try again. Cheat codes work in this one, and I happen to have invincibility on, but for whatever reason running into these rocks immediately made me have to start over anyway. It's a clunky level and I'm glad they changed it. 3 out of 10. Bonus level 2, Anakin's Flight. This is the closest thing we have to a proper bonus level. It's a level of the Anakin space battle from episode 1, and it's seemingly an unfinished level they decided to just throw in there. None of the bonus levels have any collectibles aside from a couple studs, but you can see that there's some spots in this one where minikits surely would have been. It ends with this confusing fight against the inner workings of this ship, where a barrier spins in a circle, presenting absolutely no danger to you, and then you have to blast the center when the barrier goes down. I give it a 4, it's definitely not a great level. Would you believe me if I told you that Gunship Cavalry, my least favorite level in this entire game, was actually reworked for this game? And the original is also a 1 out of 10? This version of the level is an auto-scroller where the camera screws you over every chance it gets. There's narrow cliffs, annoying laser turrets that are unavoidable if you navigate in a certain way, and a section at the end where you have to shoot turrets head on. Why don't you just fly 10 feet up and blast downwards so the laser can't hit you, bro? I think I actually do like this original version of the level a tiny bit more than the one in the Complete Saga, but it's an absolute nightmare to play in 2-player. It's a 1. Bonus level 4, A New Hope. A New Hope was the bonus level that you got when you completed the original LEGO Star Wars. Beating it gives you access to Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper, and I think that if you play this level before the Darth Vader level in episode 6, you can actually unlock him here sooner. Not too sure about that, please let me know in the comments. The level itself is really just a trailer for LEGO Star Wars 2, and was an excuse to put Darth Vader in LEGO Star Wars 1. The Complete Saga kinda makes this whole level obsolete. Couple that with the fact that there's no puzzles and barely any combat, and you're just walking down corridors for 5 minutes, and this is a pretty weak level. 3 out of 10. Yeah, get your jokes out now. A man is drowned, it's bonus level 5, Lego City. You walk around a level modeled after real LEGO playsets, and destroy a city to get a million studs. It's a very simple premise, and if you just go around shooting and interacting with everything, you'll swiftly reach the goal. 5 out of 10. Bonus level 6, Newtown. This level is essentially just Lego City, but a little bit nicer. It's got a bunch of interactables just copy-pasted from Lego City, but this one's a little better. Lego City got a 5, so I'll give Newtown a 6. How about that? Well, those levels weren't very good. There's actually one more secret in this room, though. By going over to this door and watching the trailer for LEGO Indiana Jones, I of course skipped the trailer immediately because I love skipping cutscenes more than anything in this world. Whether you skip it or watch it, Indiana Jones himself will become available to purchase in the Cantina shop. He's just a simple blaster character with not much else, but it's a cool addition regardless, and it actually got me to buy the LEGO Indiana Jones game for PS3 back in the day. Yay, I'm a consumer, I love buying things, yay! I loved completing this game as a kid, and I think it's great even now. I love seeing the big 100% in the Cantina when you load into the game, but the big reward you get is the stud fountain. By getting 160 gold bricks, you can use them to build this fountain that spews studs all over the outside area of the Cantina. You definitely won't need any more studs by the time you unlock this, and technically you don't have to 100% the game, you need to get every gold brick, but I don't know, close enough, whatever. One feature I've neglected to talk about until now is the character creator. You can use most characters' features and clothing, or a few of the unique ones the game provides to make the character of your dreams. By completing the game, the character you make gains access to every ability a character could possibly possess. Force abilities, the ability to open any type of door, you name it. So I've gone out of my way to make the most powerful character in the Star Wars universe, Rick Sharto. He's my self-insert OC, and he's cool as fuck. That's it. Thanks for watching my video. And thanks to my beautiful patrons and YouTube members whose names you're seeing on the screen right now. This game took 25 hours to complete, and even longer to put the video together. I have more nostalgic games that I'm completing this year, and the plan is to put out 10 nostalgic game completion bangers in 2025. I'll see you next time when Jahnhub's Year of Nostalgia continues. Live long and prosper, or whatever.